How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Mars 1000. Today is February 6th, 2021, and today we're going to focus on obviously the major Northeast snowstorm that's going to happen tomorrow, as well as a potential major Midwest snowstorm that could happen later this week and could affect the Northeast with over 6 inches of snow. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by first taking a look at the European model. And looking at the European model 42 hours from now, you see it takes a relatively strong low pressure system just off the east coast, just off the Jersey coast, and we see the heavier snowfall bands just north of the rain and snow line where all the convergence is occurring, where the heaviest snow is located. And it's a pretty strong storm at 993 millibars, and at this point it's pretty certain you're going to see heavy snow all throughout the Northeast. If we take a look at the Futurecast radar, which shows you how the storm is going to end up forming and the timing at which the storm will impact the Northeast, you see that there's a little bit of snow right now in Missouri, and we see pretty much a scattered area of rain showers throughout the southeast and affecting Arkansas and Oklahoma as well. But as we move forward, we will begin to see the thunder showers become more numerous. We will begin to see the rain showers cluster together a little bit more as it encounters more and more unstable air, because there's going to be a small upper level low that's going to move through the United States, and it's going to interact more and more with that warmer Gulf of Mexico air. And as a result, it's going to force a lot of that humid air aloft to create a lot more convection in this area and a much larger area of rain showers. And you see that eventually, as this moves up north, this rain will change over to snow, because there's going to be just enough cold air to change a lot of that rain over to snow, thanks to a pretty strong ridge that's currently located right around the Northeast United States. And since the last snowstorm is bringing relatively strong northwesterly winds with this storm, it's gonna bring that Arctic air down far south enough to change a lot of that rain into snow along the East Coast. And it seems pretty certain that even the extreme coastal regions of the East Coast will get impacted with heavy snow. And in fact, they might get the extreme coastal areas of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast might get the worst hit, in fact, because this storm is going to still stay relatively off the coast to really bring the heaviest snow inland, as it seems the most likely that the heaviest snow will be in the extreme coastal regions of the Northeast, which isn't very typical or something you see every day with these snowstorms, because typically speaking, it's typical that the coastal regions miss out on the heaviest snow because there's a lot of precipitation along the coast, and so typically speaking, it's mostly a rain event for a lot of the coastal areas when we see a low pressure just to the south and east of the I-95 corridor. But that's not the case in this scenario, since the storm will be just far enough to the east that it'll allow a lot of cold air to filter along the coastal regions, and the convergent warm air that's surrounding the low pressure system will stay mainly off the coast to make it an all snow event for a lot of coastal regions in the Northeast. So if you're in the coastal regions, this won't be one of those things where it's going to be a close call for you guys. For most, I would say just to the north of, I would say, Atlantic City, it's likely going to be an all snow event for you guys. And in fact, you might get the heaviest snow when it comes to the Northeast, since you're going to be very close to that convergent boundary where the Arctic air and the warm Gulf Stream air are going to interact at one point right around the rain snow line, and they're going to converge and force a very strong and buoyant updraft in this area to create the heaviest snow along the coast just to the northeast of the rain snow line, which will make it a very heavy snow event for those along the East Coast. So here's looking at the 42-hour mark. You see the heaviest snow throughout Long Island, throughout New England's getting impacted. Boston, it's an all snow event. New York City is an all snow event, and Philadelphia as well. If we continue to look at the Futurecast radar, this is as of 3 a.m. on Sunday. So early Sunday, we're seeing a little bit of snow throughout Virginia, West Virginia, and then we see the small snow band throughout Ohio and extending to Kentucky and Tennessee. However, this won't bring very heavy snow. I'd say around 1 to 3 inches, but that's about it. But the heaviest snow will be along the East Coast, right along the Interstate 95 corridor, affecting the big cities such as Washington, D.C., Baltimore, New York City, and Philadelphia. And then moving on to 5 a.m., 6 a.m. on Sunday, the snow is pretty much right around Philadelphia. It's right at New York City's doorstep, and Washington, D.C. is already deep in the snow at this point. However, the snow really won't get heavy until I would say right around the afternoon on Sunday, headed into noontime Sunday, when this storm really begins to rapidly intensify as it moves up the East Coast. But the good news is that this storm won't really intensify to its peak until it's well out to sea or well up to the north of the Northeast. So the Northeast won't get impacted by the heaviest snowfall that the storm is able to produce, since the storm is going to be at its max intensity when it's well far up to the north of the Northeast. And another thing to point out is that this storm will move relatively quickly. It's not going to be like last snowstorm where there's going to be a huge blocking air ridge in the the western half of the Atlantic, the slow this thing down and make it meander for days on end. It's going to move relatively quickly since there isn't really much of a blocking pattern, so it's going to move straight to the north and east and not really linger much after Sunday afternoon, where in New York City the snow should end right around sunset on Sunday, and then for Boston it should end early Sunday night, I'd say right around 7 to 8 p.m. on Sunday. It should end for most of New England, while Maine, it might end very early on Monday or very late on Sunday. So there's going to be a quick mover, which will limit the snowfall potential with this. And also, this won't really reach max intensity by the time it reaches the Northeast. It might strengthen a little bit more than anticipated. There's still that possibility that maybe this strengthens a little bit more, and then we see a heavier snowfall threat to New England. However, I think the general consensus is that it's going to dump mainly 5 to 8 inches of snow, maybe a little bit more than that in localized areas. However, for most of the Mid-Atlantic, I'd say it's going to be right around 3 to 6 inches of snow you guys should be expecting for most of the Northeast and New England, while some isolated spots, especially if you're closer along coast, could see even more than 6 inches of snow, because this is going to be a quick mover and it won't reach its max intensity to bring that heavy snow along the East Coast to really make it any more than potentially an 8-inch snowfall threat for a lot of the Northeast. So in terms of my forecasted snowfall, this is based off the European model. Well, let's take a look at the European model snowfall forecast first. And what's interesting is that despite only being 1 day out from this storm, a little bit more than 24 hours out from this storm, there isn't really like heavy agreement with the computer models regarding the snowfall forecast. Because if we take a look at the European model, which is a slightly more reliable model, we do see a pretty large area of 6 to 12 inches extending through Delmarva Peninsula and just southeast of Washington, D.C., and then throughout New Jersey, and this extends to the extreme southeastern portions of New England. But compare that to the GFS model. Let's move forward a little bit to get the full snowfall accumulation forecast. You're going to see that the GFS model isn't really lenient on bringing as heavy of a snowfall threat, and in fact brings the heaviest snow further southward towards Virginia and North Carolina, where over 6 inches of snow is forecasted right around the Appalachian Mountain Range in North Carolina, and then just to the north of that, mainly an area of 1 to 3 inches, where the GFS isn't really forecasting much snow at all compared to the European model, where the European model is much more lenient on bringing a good area of over 6 inches of snow just to southeast of Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and even just to the north of the 6 to 8 inch line. There's still a good area of 3 to 6 inches just to the northwest of New York City and Boston, and Philadelphia is close to 5 inches of snow, as it's a pretty major snowfall threat based on what the European model is saying. And the GFS does not agree with that at all, where it's leaning more towards 1 to 3 inches. However, since the European model tends to be a little bit better when it comes to the snowfall accumulation forecast with northeast storms, it's better to lean a little bit more to the European model forecast since it is slightly more reliable. However, I do not want to disregard the GFS model either, because there still could be that chance we only get maybe 1 to 3 inches from this, especially if the GFS model isn't as lenient as strengthening this, which is the reason why the GFS model isn't as favorable as bringing as much snow along the East Coast, because it not only is it a little bit weaker than the European model, where the European model is taking a 993 millibar storm. It's also the fact that the European model is slightly closer along the coast than the GFS model, which would make a huge change in terms of the snowfall potential forecast, because you see 993 millibars out. This 993 millibar low pressure, I'd estimate, is probably right around 50 to 60 miles off the East Coast, while for the GFS model, I'd say it's over 100 miles off the coast and maybe close to 200 miles off the coast. So there's definitely a disparity when it comes to how close the low pressure will move along the East Coast, and also how strong it'll be, which is limiting the snowfall potential based off of what the GFS model is forecasting. However, it's better to trust the European model just a little bit more, because it does do better when it comes to northeast snowstorms like this. And here's my snowfall forecast based off of what the European model is saying, what the GFS model is saying, and what the current consensus is with the computer models and the weather forecasters. And you see that I'm listing a good area of 6 to 12 inches, pretty much hugging the Interstate 95 corridor, just southeast of Boston, right around New York City and Philadelphia. Could get in that 6 to 12 inch category, but I want to put a disclaimer that it's more likely going to be in the lower end. I do not expect anywhere close to a foot in the 6 to 12 inch category, as 6 to 9 inches in the pink is more likely than not. However, I just listed the up to 12 inches just because I know during snowstorms like these are always those localized areas that could get even higher snowfall amounts, and I do not want to disregard the possibility that there could be a potential of higher snowfall amounts than, let's say, the current forecast of 6 to 9 inches. So I'd expect a good area of 6 to 12 inches throughout the Interstate 95 corridor, more leaning towards 6 to 9, and then just to the northwest of it, you see a good area of 3 to 6 inches, which do not underestimate either, because 3 to 6 inches could still be rough for a lot of you guys driving on the roads. And also 3 to 6 inches, that's over ankle. That's, for most people, 3 to 6 inches of snow is overtopping their ankles, and that's a little bit, and that's definitely could cause havoc on the roads, and definitely might be nice for some of you guys if you enjoy the snow and if you want to go sledding, because 3 to 6 inches definitely could be enough snow for sledding. I'd say maybe a little bit on the shorter side, but it still could be enough. And then 1 to 3 inches just to the northwest of the 3 to 6 inch category, as I don't expect as much snow further to the west, obviously, since the low pressure is already going to stay well out to sea. So the heaviest snowfall will stay mainly along the extreme coastal regions of the Northeast. And outside of this snowstorm, you see that I'm also tracking this other snowstorm that could happen, that could affect the Midwest and the Northeast. And there's at least 2 more snowstorms ahead of this one that the Northeast and the Midwest need to be keeping a close eye on, because they both could dump a potentially high snowfall throughout the Northeast and the Midwest. But as for this snowstorm, I'd say prepare for the Northeast. You're only around 24 hours away from this snowstorm, so there isn't a lot of time to prepare. Today is pretty much the last day. I don't expect this to be a long duration event. Don't expect it to be anywhere near last snowstorms, because that's pretty much guaranteed. That's not going to happen at this point. However, there's still a good area of 6 to 12 inches and 3 to 6 inches that could still make it dangerous to drive on the roadways and make it impassable at times, especially if you're closer to 6 to 12 inch category. And do not make any plans to go out, I'd say, tomorrow, because conditions will be dangerous at times, especially with the snowfall rates further to the north being as high as they are, with close to 1 inch per hour snowfall rates possible throughout the Interstate 95 corridor. So this is our last day to prepare. And if you enjoy the snow, the good news is it's going to bring plenty of snow, and it will add on to the amount of snow you guys already received from last snowstorm, which was well over a foot of snow and close to 2 feet in some areas. So this is definitely good news. I love to see snow, to be honest. I personally love the snow. I like to go sledding and all that, and also it's just beautiful to see snowfall, at least in my opinion. So there's definitely going to be another good snowstorm for you guys if you enjoy the snow, and make sure to enjoy it. But let's take a look at this next snowstorm, which could dump over 6 inches throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. So let's first take a look at this next potential snowstorm, and then we'll take a look at the one after, which could be much more significant and could impact a lot more people across the United States. So let's take a look at, let's go a little bit forward to around 66 hours from now. You see, for the most part, it's quiet throughout the United States. We have a big dominating ridge along the East Coast, and then throughout the Midwest, it's mainly dry with a weak low pressure system moving through. However, this low pressure could redevelop and re-strengthen as it heads further and further to the East Coast, and it's going to interact with just enough warm air along the coast to really bring. However, there's going to be a point where there's going to be just enough unstable air in this region where this weak low pressure system is going to move just far south enough to create a little bit more convection in this area, to create a lot more thunderstorm activity and snow activity. And it could create the potential of a big snowstorm throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. Well, I wouldn't say big. It's probably more likely than not going to be, I'd say, a moderate snowstorm from this. And since we're only around, I'd say, 3 to 4 days out from forecasting this potential snowstorm, I don't really expect much. I don't really expect much changes when it comes to the forecast. However, like I said, 3 days out, there's like I said in previous videos, 3 days out, there still could be changes in the forecast that could potentially be drastic and maybe strengthen the storm a little bit more. However, at this point, it seems like the current agreement is that it's not going to be anything major just yet. However, it will dump a decent amount of snow throughout the Northeast and New England, where you could see, I'd say, maybe around 1 to 3 inches from this snowstorm, which isn't major but still could cause havoc, especially if the snowfall rates dump a little bit more. If the snowfall rates are a little bit higher than expected, so we just have to wait and see. However, this next snowstorm could potentially be major. If we go around 6 days from now, you see there's a long extending band of snow throughout the Midwest and New England and the Northeast. So if we take a look at the European model, it's also leaning on bringing a major snowstorm throughout the Midwest and the Northeast headed beyond 5 days from now. There's still a lot of uncertainty to nail down where it's going to occur. But at this point, it seems like both computer models are leaning on bringing some sort of major snowstorm right around the Midwest and Northeast. So at this point, it's more likely than not we're going to see some sort of major snowstorm somewhere along the eastern half of the United States. Where exactly and exactly how powerful and how much snowfall accumulation, that still has yet to be seen, but it's still something to definitely keep in mind throughout the Northeast and New England. What could increase the chance of heavy snowfall threat is how much unstable air will be located in the United States going around headed into Thursday, because as you can see, there's going to be a weak low pressure system coming off the Pacific coast, and this first snowstorm will actually contribute a little bit to bringing a lot more unstable air closer to the southeast to create this new low pressure system that could dump a heavy amount of snow, because you see that behind it, it's going to bring a good amount of northwesterly winds to pretty much make the cold air stay right around the Northeast and the Midwest, and that'll set the stage for this next low pressure system to encounter this cold air and bring it further southward to create a lot more unstable air and convection to create a low pressure system, because you see there's a little bit unstable air, but there's another big dip in the jet stream that's going to enhance thunderstorm activity right around the southeast, right around the south central United States. And you see that the unstable air just increases dramatically as a new low pressure system comes behind this initial one and brings a lot more cold air further southward. So my battery's running out. I gotta do this quick, but it really all depends on how much cold air is gonna be behind this low pressure system, because it'll make a big difference in terms of how much snow you'll receive and how much snowfall accumulation you'll receive, and also it could create a severe weather event right around southeast. So definitely keep that in mind. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but based off what both computer models are saying, right around Thursday we could see a major snowstorm again impacting the Midwest and Northeast, on top of the snowstorms we're already forecasted to experience tomorrow and the ones we've already experienced, like on Monday, where Winter Storm Orlena just brought over 2 feet of snow in many areas. But yeah, anyways guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather related content. I hope you guys have a good day.